Good day, everyone. We are the Group 4 and we are going to discuss the Chapter 4, which is the Security Systems in Rooms Division. Escort, carry, and store valuable items. This unit comprises of 4 elements. The first one, prepare to undertake escort and carry duties, undertake escort duties, carry valuable items, and lastly, store valuable items. So I am going to discuss the first element, which is to prepare to undertake escort and carry duties. At the end of my report, my classmates should be able to first identify valuables requiring escort, carry, and storage, describe legal requirements applying to guest property, understand relevance of escort trainings, identify and understand the characteristics of security staff, understand plans for regular escort and carry duties, identify establishments' cash carry policies and procedures, identify potential threats, identify resources required when escorting and carrying, and lastly, clarify escort and carry assignments. So first, kailangan muna nating identify kung ano nga ba yung mga sinasabi nating valuable items na kailangang i-escort, i-carry, and i-store. So first, valuable items may be of value to everyone. Hindi lang importante sa akin or sa'yo, kundi sa lahat. Next, valuable only to the owner. Ito yung mga items na kumbaga may sentimental value. Next, valuable today but not tomorrow. Small or large, and last, made from any materials or substance. Yung mga bagay na made from pearls, diamonds, ganyan. Valuable items may belong to the venue where you work, a private person or guest, yung mga VIPs natin, a company or organization whose representatives are staying at or using the venue, yung mga employees or mga taong gumagamit ng venue. Valuables may be comprised of cash, pera, precious stones, yan yung mga pearl, diamond, jewelry such as earrings, mga kwintas, singsing, bullion. Ano nga ba ang bullion? Ito yung generic term referring to bars or yung coins na made from precious metals. The most common bullion na kailangan ng special attention is yung gold and silver. Next, documents, mga mahalagang papel. Yung mga passports natin, mga cheque, yung mga kontrata, ganyan. Electronic data, yung mga computers, phone, or other portable devices. Artwork, yung mga paintings, sculptures. And lastly, the general and personal properties. Next. Describe legal requirements applying to guest property. You must comply with hotel country legislation. Statute law. Ano nga ba tong statute law? Ito yung mga requirements na ina-impose sa bawat establishment or any business. Kapag ka nag-fail to meet these requirements, pwede tayong magmulta or makulong. Next is yung civil law, where individuals or business take legal actions against each others. Yan, kapag ka may nangyaring incident sa hotel or sa venue, pwede nating kasuhan yung taong responsible sa pangyayaring yon. Last is yung common law, which is law that has emerged over time based on previous decisions called legal precedents made by courts. Ito naman yung mga batas na ipinapatupad pwedeng locally, regionally, or nationally. One example is the duty of care. Mababanggit natin yan sa mga next slides natin. Extra obligations are imposed on hotels. First, hotels must advise guests of this. So yung mga yon dapat kapag may mga guest tayo, sinasabi natin sa kanila at aware sila kung ano yung mga protection na kaya nating i-provide sa kanila. And hotels must provide safekeeping facilities. Hotel to be liable for guest property. So kapag may mga nag-check-in ng mga guests, liable tayo sa mga pagmamay-ari nila kung cargo natin sila kasi nasa property nila tayo. Next, bailment occurs when guests offer items for safekeeping. Ano nga ba tong bailment? Bailment occurs when an item is transferred from one person to another. Kapag sinasabing bailment, yung hotel must take good care sa mga properties ng guest natin. At kapag sinabing kukunin na or i-return na yung item, dapat maibalik natin na in good condition. Walang sira, walang damage. Next, ayan na yung duty of care. Duty of care, it is a common law obligation imposed on all businesses. Ito yung law na dapat i-avoid natin sa harm yung mga guests natin and avoid loss or damage to their properties. Next, exclusion clauses. Seek to limit the liability or legal exposure to the venue. And lastly, the thief, stealing, taking someone without permission. Yung pagnanakaw at yung mga minsan kapag kinukuha mo and then they sell it, yung mga ninanakaw nila. So that is stealing. Next is the undertake relevant training. Training is a common prerequisite. It will be structured and formalized. Ibig sabihin, pare-pareho yung mga knowledge na maaaral ng mga escort. Address skills, knowledge, and attitudes. Dito malalaman or maintindihan yung iba't ibang mga skills na kailangan sa pagiging escort at yung mga attitudes na dapat i-value ng mga escort natin. Comprise theory, demonstration, and practical session still requires supervision of your first few workplace tasks. Training topics, identification and use of equipment. Example of threat, how to identify threat, route identification, madidiscuss mamaya. Location and operation of security systems, technology and equipment, legal issues, internal requirements, protocol, policies, and SOPs. Ano nga ba yung SOP? Ano nga ba yung SOP? May nakakaalam ba?
Operation procedure.
Ano ulit? Come again?
SOP or called Standard Operating Procedure.
Tama, Standard Operating Procedure. Internal documentation. Trainers may include workplace trainers, head of security, front office manager, experienced staff, and representative. Identify characteristics of security staff. So, personal characteristics required, yung honesty, high-level interpersonal skills, vigilance, observation skills, ability to follow directions, attention to detail, leadership, common sense, ability to take action, high levels of personal presentation, confidence, formal training, fit and agile. So, sino makakapag-explain ng one or more sa mga personal characteristics ng escort? Jamaica?
Ang explain ko is yung attention to detail. Ay, yung ability to follow directions pala. Yung ability to follow direction, yun yung ability mo na sundin lahat ng every detailed na sinasabi ng ini-escortan mo. Yun yung parang yun yung ano mo bilang security staff na kailangan mong i-follow lahat ng rules kasi kung once na wala hindi mo na follow yung rules, pwede kang magkamali at pwede kayong maan ng threats and mapahamak kayo.
Next. Rika.
Honesty. Dapat honest sa lahat ng bagay, especially sa client mo or sa mga kasama mo sa security. If ever na nakakapansin ka na hindi maganda, dapat sabihin mo sa kanila para makaready kayo ng plan if ever na may kailangan kayong gawin or action. And second, observation skills. dapat dapat may skills ka pagdating sa observation. Example, sa isang lugar, kung dapat alam mong mag-observe kung may mga bagay na hindi na maganda ganon. If ever sa mga tao, dapat alam mong obserbahan or alamin kung may mga tao ba na may mga hindi tamang kilos na magkakaroon ng conflict or risk para sa isang lugar. And second, dapat may formal training. Kasi if ever na magkaroon ng situation na kailangan na makipaglaban, dapat may formal training ka. For example, marunong ka sa martial arts, gano'n. Para alam mo kung paano protektahan yung mga tao
Yung
or yung client mo.
Dapat maalam ka din sa paggamit ng mga weapons. Yan. So next,
Yes. Dapat alam.
Mitch.
Sa akin naman is yung confident. Siyempre dapat may confident ka sa pagiging security staff. Para mai-handle mo yung mga sitwasyon na kailangang pagtuunan ng pansin. Then, yung second is attention to detail. Siyempre kapag may mga sitwasyon na may gulong pangyayari or mga kailangan gawin dun sa
Venue.
ganon. Dapat lahat ng detail kailangan alam mo tapos nakatutok ka lang doon, ganon.
Thank you, everyone. So next, employers may also value yung experience. Ayun nga, yung kaya ng sabi kanina, dapat may formal training para maalam din tayo sa paggamit ng iba't ibang ng mga weapons pang protect sa ating mga clients, ganyan. And physical size, importante din. Siyempre, dapat physically fit tayo. And lastly, current certification. Next slide. Situational awareness, knowing. Ayan, yung sinasabi nga natin, dapat maalam. Aware tayo lagi. Mapagmasid. What the situation is normally like when everything is safe and secure. Kumbaga yung normal na pangyayari, normal na view, and then kapag if it is changing, may pagbabago ba? May mga hindi ba kanais-nais na mga nangyayari? How it is changing? Why is it changing? And the threat presented by changing circumstances, yung mga possible na mangyaring threat sa pagbabagong iyon. Dapat alam natin lahat yon. So situational awareness relies heavily on keeping eyes and ears open, analyzing everything. Ayan. Situational awareness is the basis for determining the threat situations, identifying actions needing to be taken, identifying what is normal and that things are not normal. Ayan. Dapat alam mong i-identify kung tama pa ba to, normal pa ba to, o hindi na. Prompt and effective responses. Prepare plans for regular escort and carry duties. Plans should be prepared for all escort and carry jobs, regular jobs, and one-off jobs. Ano nga ba yung pagkakaiba ng regular jobs and one-off jobs? Yung regular jobs, yan na yung ginagawa mo araw-araw. Normal na ginagawa mo araw-araw. Yung one-off jobs, parang special na request from the clients, ganyan, na kailangan mong gawin na except sa regular jobs mo. Regular jobs requiring planning can include taking cash flows to register or terminals, yung pag-transfer ng pera, taking money from registers or terminals during trade, transferring cash at end of day from sale points, staff and or management escorts. Pag-escort sa mga VIPs natin, sa mga employees, colleagues natin to meetings, to car after work. Parang ihahatid mo sila to secure their safety. Taking cash to bank, and lastly, bringing change from bank to venue. Ito naman yung mga one-off jobs requiring planning. Attendance by heads of state, politicians, sports stars, celebrities, mga artista, mga VIPs. service requirements to guests designated as VIPs. Individual request from guests. Ayun ang sinasabi ko. May mga special guests. Special request from guests. In response to credible threat, to respond to change condition which increase risk. Prepare plans for regular escort and carry duties. Planning is necessary to identify threats and issues, optimize success, reduce threat, reduce danger, determine routes, calculate resources required. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Parang kapag hindi ka nagpaplano, parang pinapahamak mo din yung mga clients mo, ganyan. The following people should be involved: customer, client, or guest, the management, other internal security staff, and external security consultants. Planning must generate answers to when does the job need to be done? Kulang-kulang. Why does the job need to be done? Where does the job start? Ano to? Where does the job start or finish? Who is involved? What is involved? How is the job to be performed? Consider the following when developing plans. Determine possible threats, identify secure routes, primary and secondary, designate specific staff to specific duties, determine physical, human, and financial resources requires. Kailangan nating magplano kasi para alam natin kung ano yung gagawin natin kapag may event sa venue natin, sa company natin, at kapag may mga possible threat, maiwasan natin agad or ma-actionan natin agad. Guard against complacency. It can lead to, not planning properly, not taking proper care, not paying attention, showing lack of interest and commitment. The guard against predictability. Change days and times of regular events. Change the staff use. Use different vehicle. Yan, kapag napapansin na ng security na may something na mali, ayan, dapat ready na gumawa ng way para ma-secure yung safety ng client. Yan, use different containers. Do something to avoid being predictable. Identify establishment cash carry policies and procedures. Policies and procedures vary and you will learn what applies. At induction and orientation, parang sa ating mga college, may class orientation tayo. Sinasabi kung ano yung mga kailangan natin gawin, yung mga policies na kailangan nating sundin. So participating in on-the-job training. By reading internal policies and SOPs, by asking questions, pwede tayong mag-ask sa mga seniors dahil mas nakakaalam sila. Through observing others. Policies and SOPs may address scope of authority, risk management requirements, response to threat, attack or breach of security, identification of routes, and staff and equipment required. Identify potential threats. Potential threats can be identified by encouraging staff to report suspicious and observations. Ayan. Yung mga colleagues natin, pwede nating i-ask kung may mga napapansin ba silang kakaiba. Making security a standing topic at staff meetings. Talking with other security staff. Talking to guests. Interviewing guests. Liaising with authorities and monitoring the media. Basic physical threats. Theft. Yung stealing, pagnanakaw. Assault, where offenders physically attack those involved in the movement of items in order to obtain the goods. Yung physical attack or physical assault. Vehicle accident. There may also be threats or intimidation, threats of violence. We know where you live. Mga pananakot na alam nila kung saan ka nakatira. Mga basic information about you. Threats to kill, revenge attacks, reprisals, and promises to do damage. Identify resources required when escorting and carrying. Resources can include vehicles. Dapat kapag mag-escort tayo, yung mga security staff, dapat may high profile na mga sasakyan. Receptacles or containers, mga weapons, communication devices, dive bombs, physical barriers, security devices, equipment, systems, and technology, time delay locks. Ayan yung nasa upper right, safes. Itong nasa lower left. Clarify escort and carry assignments. Assignment instructions. Give you detail of work to be performed. May be given verbally or in writing. Details contained in assignments instructions, specific guest or client's requirement for the job. Objectives. Time. List and description of tasks which are required to be performed. Yun nga yung kung regular or on-off jobs. Resources available to be used. Yung mga kailangan gamitin like weapons, mga communication devices, relevant documentation. So that's all for my report. And Rika will take the element 2.
Good day, I am Rica May Fernandez and I am going to report the element 2, which is undertake escort duties. At the end of my report, my classmates should be able to identify route to be taken, assess potential threats for the individual, obtain assistance if required, perform close escort duties, possible response of the threats, completion of relevant documents. Identify route to be taken. All escort assignments should take place along the identified route. This section identifies factors to consider when identifying such a route. Escort duties may be accompanying valuable items which are being carried by others. Ito yung mga mahalagang bagay na dala ng mga tao, kaya kailangan nila ng escort kasi need nila ng protection para maiwasan yung theft and other situation na mangyayari. Providing an escort service to an individuals or group of individuals. Both duties involve providing a deterrent and providing a protection. Sila yung nagpro-provide ng protection sa mga guests or mga client na kailangan ng mga escort, kaya kailangan nila ng escort. Sila din yung nagpro-provide ng protection sa mga tao if ever na may mga pwedeng mangyari sa kanila, like an unpredictable situation na mangyayari. There are two roads that you need to develop. That is primary and secondary roads. This standard procedure is to develop a primary road for all escort duties and assignment. Develop at least one secondary route for every escort duties or assignment, and include route direction which assignment instruction. Primary route is your preferred route for an escort based on all relevant factors and taken into account all associated details and requirements. It will be the route which is deemed to be safest and the most secure. Ito yung pinaka-safe at most secure na route na pwede mong daanan for your destination. The route will be developed to show a starting point, path or road to be taken divided into sector, fleet points, check-in points, where radio contacts with the control room is required, and the end point. The secondary road, ito yung plan B. Secondary road is your plan B should be the primary road to be promised to become unavailable, unable, or unsafe. Ito yung plan B, ito yung pangalawang road na pwede mong daanan if ever na yung primary road at ay hindi available or unsafe for your client. The secondary road should show entry points from the primary road into the secondary road, path road to be taken, one of the following, where the secondary road rejoins the primary road, and also alternative road to completion of assignment. Generic prerequisites. Before a road is confirmed as being either a primary or secondary road, it is advisable to conduct test practice runs using the identified road. Dapat nagkakandak ka ng test for the, if ever kung saang road yon, dapat alamin mo kung safe ba yon at kung walang risk na mangyayari doon. This should be conducted at the time of the day the real escort is required. Dapat every time nagkakandak ka ng practice sa ruta na yon. Use the same staff as will be employed for the actual assignment. Dapat same staff lang din and same employed na escort ang nandun. Kasi if ever na magpapalit ka ng escort, papalitan yon, magkakaroon ng conflict na hindi niya alam yung plan or yung kinandak mong practices na by time to time, hindi niya alam yung nangyayari. Pagdadaan kayo sa ruta na yun, hindi niyo pala alam na dun a-attack yung attackers at yung safety ng client mo, hindi mo masisigurado. Feature use actors to simulate the person or persons being escorted, and also duplicate as closely as possible the actual condition which will apply to the escort. Time progressed through each sector of the route and the overall escort assignment. Include simulated events in the test practice run to reflect situation or threats which had been identified as being likely to occur. This may include crowd disturbance, media intervention, threats, and attacks. Dapat alam mo every events at alam mo mag-identify ng situation if ever sa crowd disturbance. Kasi sa crowd disturbance, sa sobrang dami ng tao, dun magkakaroon ng opportunity yung mga attackers para umattack. Also, the media interaction. For example, for the politicians, madaming kakalap ng impormasyon, madaming mag-i-interview sa kanila, at lahat ng media, magiging triggered sila para kumalap ng impormasyon at gusto nilang makapag-interview for the politics. Kaya mag-uunahan sila at magkakaroon ng if ever magtutulakan. Kaya if ever yung client mo, need niya ng escort para magproprotekta sa kanya. And also the threats and attack for the important person, if ever. For example, also the politics, the celebrities, may mga threats na silang natatanggap dahil sa mga kalaban nila, dahil sa mga bashers nila, and may possible na aatakin sila. Kaya need nila ng escort na makakasama for their safety. When looking at the route to be taken for an escort assignment, you should pay attention to the following. Determine the shortest route. Often the best route is the shortest route, but this is not allowed due to exposure and opportunity provided to attackers. Crowd and crash problem when the road moves through high traffic area. Dapat alamin mo kung ano yung pinaka-iksing ruta or pinaka-the best na ruta na dadaanan nyo para maiwasan yung exposure at maiwasan yung opportunity ng mga attackers para atakin yung client mo. Also, para maiwasan din yung crowd and crash problem. For example, the traffic areas. Because of the traffic areas, doon sila magkakaroon din ng opportunity para umattack. Kasi nga, na stuck sila doon dahil sa traffic. Kaya kailangan iwasan yun. Kaya dapat i-identify mo yung pinaka-shortest and pinaka-best na ruta for your destination. Determining quickest route. The quickest route is most commonly the route to take as it reduces exposure and opportunity, but this can be sometimes not be the route the person or persons being escorted want to take. Sometimes, the person being escorted What's a high-profile event involving crowd interaction, photo opportunities, and publicities? Dapat, gaya nga ng sabi ko kanina, dapat alamin mo yung quickest route na dadaanan mo para ma-reduce nga yung exposure and opportunity ng mga attackers para umatak. Dahil sa karamihan sa mga ni-escortan, sila yung mga always na uma-attend ng mga meetings, seminars, ganon, crowd. Sila yung palaging exposure sa mga crowd interaction, photo opportunity, publicity, dun din karamihan maraming media, kaya need nila ng escort doon to protect them. Assessment of the weather expected at the time and how it's likely to impact, like roads, activities, and threats. Kaya kailangan yan ng assessment para masigurado yung safety ng guest or client mo. Evaluation of the time of the day. The escort is required, which will have major impact on equipment required and route available. Dapat kailangan ni-evaluate mo time to time yung mga equipment mo and yung ruta, anong available. For example, the primary route. Dapat i-check mo yun kung safe ba, kung pwedeng dun kayo dadaan. O kung hindi man, may secondary route kayo. Yun yung plan B. Identification and analysis of relevant other issues such as day of the week, local event, celebration, sporting occasion, which may impact on access, road closure, stress on other security staff, authorities, and security system equipment and technology. In-house events such as seminar, conference, meetings, or function being conducted in the venue at the same time. Levels of expected trade and traffic, general environmental issues such as noise, lighting, temporary structure, and display obstructing normal routes and line of sight. Dapat alam mo mag-identify at analysis ng mga issues like yung mga events na nangyayari, mga celebration. Alam mong i-identify kung merong risk na mangyayari man or mga situation na mangyayari na kailangan ng security and safety. Assess potential threats for the individual jobs. Each escort job must be assessed on an individual basis. This section explains the need for this assessment and discuss factors which need to be considered. Bakit nga kailangan natin ng assessment? Kailangan natin gawin. This assessment must be undertaken to and then identify, reduce, avoid, or eliminate threats and risks. This is all part of the formal risk management process kasi kailangan nating ma-identify at ma-avoid yung mga threats at risks na nangyayari. Kaya kailangan natin ng assessment. Determine appropriate responses to threats. Kailangan din nating alamin kung ano yung dapat na response natin sa mga threats. Kasi nga, hindi dapat respond ka na lang ng respond, hindi naman pala dapat yung tamang response. Dun baka yung respond na ginagawa mo, mas lalo mong natitrigger yung mga nagbibigay ng threats. Develop the most secure and effective course of action. Dapat mag-develop ka ng most secure at effective course ng action para sa safety ng iyong client. Involve relevant of others in the planning process. This may include person or persons to be escorted under representative, internal staff, and authorities. That is the example of the effective course of action or most secure plan. Discharge due diligence on duty of care obligations. Provide a professional service. Demonstrate value for the charge being leveled for the service provided. Of course, as a escort, kailangan mo maging professional. Kailangan professional yung mga service mo, professional yung mga action mo. Hindi yung basta action ka na lang ng action na hindi naman dapat. Kailangan mong gumalaw as a professional. Factor to assess. This said, both contain an element of risk. This is always the potential people will want to steal an item, and there is always a potential offenders will want to attack, kidnap a person. Kasi hindi mo naman alam kung kailan ka aatakin, kung kailan merong mangyayaring situation like kidnap or what. Kaya kailangan always ready. Providing escort to valuable items and providing escort to people are different activities. The fundamental difference is an item is inert and is an inanimate object, meaning like it will not argue with you, it will simply respond to whatever is done to you, it without disputing things. Items can be replaced, but lives cannot. People who are to be escorted. May question your tactics, propose, route, and of course an action. May be unpredictable in an instance. They can make a decision which completely destroy all plans. Will proceed at different rates. The rate of travel varies between individuals. Will respond to threats and attack in different ways. Some have been trained to immediately and unquestioningly follow direction, while others are shocked into disbelief and inaction. Generally speaking, people generate different problems than items. For example, people may want to talk to the person being escorted. Members of the public may want autographs and photographs. The media may want interviews. Angry or disgruntled people may want to physical or verbally abuse the person. Ito yung hindi nila kailangan yung items na dala ng client mo. Kailangan nila yung tao mismo. For example, the people na gustong kumausap sa kanila. For example, the members of the public like the media or the people na gusto ng mga autographs and photographs. This is the media may want to interviews. Yung mga angry people na want ng physical or verbally abuse. Yun yung mga example ng need din ng escort, hindi lang yung mga taong may mga valuable items na dala. Generic factors. When assessing threats for escorting duties, review all your internal intelligence. Contact local authorities for updates. Of course, kailangan mong mag-update always sa mga authorities kasi if ever man na may mangyayari, updated sila at magkakaroon sila ng information doon. Plan for the worst and hope for the best. Always adapt a worst case scenario. Dapat alam mo na kung ano yung worst na mangyayari para maplano mo din kung ano yung dapat at best action na gagawin mo. Eliminating a threat is better option than reducing the potential of the threat. Like restricting or closing access to a road is preferable to having to deal with people along the road. And also, undertaking the escort when there are no other people present is better than doing it when there are lots of bystanders and onlookers. Case-by-case factors. For individual escort assignments, always talk to the person or person to be escorted or their representative to identify like specific requirements, personal preferences, no threats and or troublemakers, previous incident involving escort of the person to the other venue of location. Kailangan kausapin mo yung guest or client mo at alamin mo kung ano yung tungkol sa kanya. Alamin mo yung mga specific requirements niya, personal preferences niya. Alamin mo din kung ano yung mga threats na natatanggap niya. At also, dapat alamin mo din yung mga previous incident niya para if ever na may mangyari, magkakaroon ka ng idea kung ano na yung gagawin mo. Never exceed your designated scope of authorities when making decision and or taking action with unique demands regarding escorting service provision. Dapat alam mo na kung ano ang magiging desisyon mo. Dapat kaya mong magdesisyon para sa sarili mo, para sa ni-escortan mo. Hindi yung parang hingi ng advice sa mga authorities kung kaya mo namang magdesisyon para sa tamang gagawin mo. Ensure all action taken comply with internal policies and procedure. Dapat lahat ng action mo comply sa mga internal policies and provision, hindi yung action ka na lang ng action na hindi naman dapat ginagawa. Never engage in illegal activities. Of course, hindi ka dapat nakiki-engage sa mga illegal activities like illegal tactics, use of illegal weapons, and assault. Dapat legal lahat. Yung ginagawa mo, legal yung mga weapons mo, legal yung mga tactics na ginagawa mo. That's all. Obtain assistance if required. You will always realize you are part of team when you provide any escort duties. This section describes you may elect to call when performing escorting duties. You should feel free to call a help from others at any time. Kailangan, pag alam mong hindi mo na kaya, humingi ka na ng tulong para naman magkaroon ka ng backup if ever na may situation na mangyayari. In relation to provision of escort duties, this refers to 3 distinct stages. During the planning and preparation phase, dapat nakikipag-participate ka na during planning and preparation. While providing the actual escort to enhance service provision, assist with response to threats and attack. Dapat while you are escorting, you need to enhance your service provision, and also you must need assist our responses to threats and attacks. Dapat alam mo at dapat i-assist mo kung ano yung dapat i-response sa mga threats and attack na mangyayari. Kasi hindi, sa gaya ng sabi ko kanina, hindi naman pwedeng respond ka na lang ng respond ng threats na hindi naman pala dapat yun yung i-response mo. As part of the review stage following completing or finalizing of the assignment. Reason to obtain assistance. Assistance in relation to the provision of escort duties is beneficial for several reasons. It will help relieve you of sole responsibility. It provides a more diverse range of opinions and options for actions. It supplies a bigger pool of expertise and experience to draw from. It facilitates information sharing and also it generates more and more informed intelligence to use as the basis for planning and decision making. Sources and type of assistance. There are 3 main sources of assistance. Help from other internal staff. This can be include other security staff, management, people and staff who have been part of similar escort duties in the past, marketing department to promote the level of security being provided without disclosing specific to deter offenders or attacks. Dito, sila yung mga pwedeng paghingan mo ng tulong o paghingan mo ng assistance. Assistance may cover suggestion for planning and action. Yung nag-a-assist sa'yo, sila yung pwede mong paghingan ng suggestion para sa mga planong gagawin mo or action na gagawin mo. Information about previous escort assignment, makakahingi ka din ng information about sa mga previous escortan nila at mga assignments nila. Help with providing suitable staff. Advice regarding expected rate and travel levels, makakuha ka din ng advice sa kanila. Cooperation in closing certain areas. Support from an internal security company, which may involve provision of guard to support escort, provision of intelligence on local threats, contribution of suggestion for action and feedback on plans, arrangement for response to attacks and incidents. Of course, sa mga assistant mo, makakakuha ka ng support sa kanila from internal securities, just like the example I give. Gaya ng pag-a-arrange ng mga response for the attacks and incidents, magkakaroon sila ng contribution for suggestion para sa action at feedback na planuhin. Kakaroon din ng provision of intelligence on local threats and provision guard to support escort. Support from local authorities. This will commonly include liaison with police, fire and ambulance, and or civil defense. Tsaka makakakuha ka din ng support for local authorities kasi 'di ba? Kailangan 'yan. For example, kapag may nangyaring pakikipaglaban or nasugatan, need mo ng ambulance para makapunta sa ospital. Need din ng police, fire, and other civil defense. Kasi hindi naman bawat oras kayang-kaya mong gawin yun. Need mo pa rin ng support from local authorities. This contribution assistance may relate to provision of update threats advice. Makakakuha ka ng update threats advice for your response, kung at paano tama mong gawin pag nakatanggap ng threats yung client mo or guest mo. Tips on planning and strategies. Makakuha ka din ng tips sa pagpaplano and also the strategies. Feedback on plans. Provision of the physical presence on the day to assist with the, for example, traffic management, crowd control, and also dealing with criminal activities. And lastly, organization of response to identified issues and incidents. Perform close escort duties. From time to time, there can be a need to undertake close escort duties. Close escort duties are duties performed by bodyguard, also known as security escort or CPOs. CPOs is close protection officer or tinatawag natin na bodyguard. Bodyguards may be venue employees with special skills. Venue staff who perform close escort duties would commonly have special training and accreditation in driving, with a focus on defensive and evasive driving techniques. Of course, pag driver ka or escort ka, dapat may special training ka for driving para alam mo yung mga driving techniques and you know how to focus on defensive. Also, martial arts and close combat. As an escort, dapat alam mo yung mga, kung alam mo kung paano makipaglaban. Alam mo, dapat nag-training ka for martial arts and close combat. First aid, of course, dapat alam mo yan. And also, firearms. Dapat alam mo kung paano gumamit ng mga firearms. Alam mo kung ano yung tamang gagawin, kung paano to tamang gawitin. Kasi hindi naman pwede na hawak ka na lang ng firearms na wala ka namang special training. Provided by external security companies. Bodyguards may operate independently, cooperating with each other and other security staff. It is rare and potentially ineffective for bodyguards to operate alone. In conjunction with bodyguards who normally accompany the client, such as usual security staff and CPOs, who accompany the person whenever they travel or make an appearance. In conjunction with local authorities and police, close escort can be required for VIPs, head of state, celebrities, sports stars, musician, and politician. Of course, sila talaga yung kailangan ng close escort kasi itong mga to, sila yung mas madaming opportunity na mas madaming a-attack sa kanila, or example, madaming media na mag-e-interview sa kanila, need nila ng escort to protect them. Kasi hindi natin alam, sa sobrang dami ng media or crowd, may posibilidad doon na magtutulakan, mag-uunahan. Para lang makakuha ng informasyon, need nila ng close escort. Gaya na din ng celebrities. For example, pupunta sila sa event. Of course, meron silang fans na pupunta. Kaya kailangan din nila ng close escort kasi nga, to protect them. Kasi sa mga fans nila, syempre, excited yung mga fans. Mag-uunahan sila para kumuha ng mga autographs, magpapapicture. May posibilidad din na mag-uunahan, magtutulakan. Kaya kailangan din ng close escort to protect them. Activities involved in providing close escort. Planning travel arrangement to and from the venue. Dapat na plano mo na yon habang papunta ka pa lang at pagdating mo, right? Parang like roads, the primary and secondary road, dapat na plano mo na yon kung saan ka dapat ruta dadaan. Means of transportation, decoy, security, itinerary. Dapat lahat yan na plano mo na bago pa lang papunta at pagkarating mo sa venue na yon. Planning movement within the venue. Dapat na plano mo na kung anong galaw yung gagawin mo pagkarating mo pa lang. At kapag nag-attend ka na sa meeting, appointments, meals, and other nominated engagement of activities, dapat na plano mo na kung anong movement yung gagawin. And also on departure mo. Driving duties including movement of person from, for example, airport to venue. Dapat inaalam mo na yung movement ng isang tao, yung client mo. Habang nasa airport pa lang siya papunta sa venue niya. Travel as required throughout their stay to local attraction, destination, engagement, and return, and also the travel departure. Kaya nga nasabi ko, dapat yung driving duties, alam niya na, siya na yung nakatoka doon para mag-protect for his client or her client. Mula pa lang sa pagsakay niya hanggang sa pagkababa niya. Physical inspecting, searching, and checking the electronic sweeping of rooms, venue facilities, and vehicles. Dapat, chine-check mo na yung rooms, venue, or yung vehicles kung safety ba. Kung walang mga bagay na hindi safe. For example, sa sasakyan, may problema pala, hindi mo chinek. Doon magkakaroon ng problema. Magkakaroon ng risk for your client or sa ini-escortan mo. Detect the neutralized bagging and other surveillance devices. Kailangan i-detect mo kung may at in-neutralize mo yung mga bagging and other surveillance devices. Also, detect and defend against explosive devices. Dapat i-detect mo kung may mga explosive devices pa doon. And lastly, identify and respond to other threats. Dapat alam mong mag-identify ng mga threats and also alam mo din mag-respond ng mga threats. Undertaking background checks of people who will meet or to be in close proximity to the client. This may involve check on service staff, identified members of the public, suppliers and providers. Dapat i-background check mo sila para na din sa safety ng iyong client. Protection the client against identified and emergent threats such as intrusive media, unwanted people, stalkers, known person who are classified as threats. Dapat din, protektahan mo yung client mo against sa mga intrusive media. Kaya nga nito, sinabi niya, unwanted people, stalkers, sila yung mga dapat mong iwasan at dapat siguraduhin mong protektado yung client mo sa mga to. Accompanying the client to provide a physical presence and give the client a sense of safety and security. Dapat siguraduhin mo at ipaintindi mo sa client mo na safe sila at secure sila. Hindi yung parang masyado silang kakabahan kasi yun nga, may mga threats na nangyayari. Dapat pag-anin mo yung loob nila at sabihin mo, secure at safe sila. Present a visible deterrence to threats. Provide venue information and service as required. Dapat mag-provide ka ng information sa venue na yun kasi if ever man na mangyayari, may mga pagkukunan kayo ng information kung ano man ang nangyari at update doon. Respond to threats and incidents. Dapat, gaya nga ng sabi ko, dapat alam mo, dapat marunong ka mag-response sa mga threats and incidents na nangyayari. Kasi, of course, sa lahat ng nangyayari, dapat meron kang respond doon at information na masasabi kasi if ever man na may mga risk or attacks na mangyayari, meron kang at alam mo kung ano yung gagawin at sasabihin mo for authorities to gain information and update them. Communicate with other bodyguards, security staff, and agents and authorities. Gaya ng sabi ko, magipag-communicate ka sa mga bodyguards para magkaroon sila ng information, also the security staff, authorities, and other. Para naman, if ever nga naman yung nangyari, alam nila kung ano yung nangyayari. Alam nila kung ano ba yung situation, kailangan mo makipag-communicate sa kanila or mag-update sa kanila. Facilitate movement within the venue and access to required areas. Clear the way. Monitor implementation of protection plans. Observe and note issues for immediate action and later follow up. Kailangan lahat ng facilitate o venue na pupuntahan mo, na-clear mo na yung way and also dapat na-monitor mo na at na-implement mo na yung mga plano mo for protection and safety ng client mo. And also, dapat mag-observe at note ka ng mga issues na nangyayari at dapat meron ka ng immediate action and follow-up doon. Facilitating the carrying of valuable items in the presence of or separate from the client which will involve like participating in the planning process routes, timing equipment to be used, threat analysis, physical accompanying those who are carrying the valuable items to afford a physical presence and deterrent value, clearing the way for those who are physically carrying the items, and lastly, overseeing the carriage of the items to ensure those involved move the items to where they are supposed to go according to the plans made and nothing is lost or stolen on the way. Kailangan yung mga valuable items at nakaseparate yun sa client mo para maiwasan yung pagnanakaw or maiwasan maiwasang mawala yung mga gamit na yun. Kasi nga, mahalagang bagay yun. Yun yung mga magkakaroon ng opportunity na nanakawin yun ng mga theft. Respond to threats. When a threat arises during an escort assignment, you are expected to respond according to predetermined protocols. Threats may be classified as identified. These are the threats identified as the part of the planning process. Risk identification, they may or may not translate materials into an actual threats. They are simply threats which might eventuate. Perceived threats. These refer to a set of conditions or circumstances which your instinct and observation, situational awareness, tells you could indicate an actual threat is imminent. Again, the perceived threats may not become an actual threat. Sign must be unusual activity or the presence of an unexpected number of people, a change of demeanor or people in the immediate vicinity, information received from other security, and lastly, changes to the physical environment which were not predicted or anticipated. Actual threats. This is the situation where something has been point on fact taken place which confirm danger and or offensive action by an offender is imminent. For example, someone bursts through a cordon and lunges forward. You hear a sound which is cause of alarm. Kunyari, pagkabasag ng mga bagay. Yun yung, for example, ng actual threats. The sound of breaking glass, yun nga. Gunfire. Verbal abuse. A shouted warning. Action has occurred which jeopardize the safety of security of the client or valuable being escorted. For example, an attack is made on the client. An attempt is made to steal the valuable items. Yun yung example ng actual threats. For example, yung mga mag-a-attempt na nanakawin yung mga valuable items. Ganun. The following apply when responding to threats. Protection of people must take priority over protection of property. Assets or valuable items always put the safety of people above the security of valuables. Dapat mas siguraduhin mo pa rin, mas unahin mo pa rin yung secure ng yung client kaysa sa valuable items. Kasi yung sabi nga nung una, yung mga items na papalitan pero yung buhay hindi. You do not have unlimited authority to take action. You are not a police officer and do not have the same right as the police officer. Dapat yung action mo limited lang, hindi yung action ka ng action, hindi naman pala na legal sa yun na parang ginagawa ng police dahil hindi ka police, you're an escort. Follow established house procedure for responses. This can be expected to address complying with demands made by attackers and thieves, complying promptly and not attempting to stall or delay the offenders, refraining from physical confrontation unless this is forced onto you. This embraces not being a hero, not arguing with offenders, not making threatening moves and gestures, not staring at them, speaking only when spoken to, advises the offender if you need to do something or take some action which may alarm, surprise, or confuse them. Taking action to ensure the safety of others in the area. Dapat mag-take ka ng action para masiguro mo yung safety ng iba dun sa area na yon or sa venue na yon. Noting description of perpetrators. Activating alarms only when safe to do. Dapat mag-activate ka ng alarms pag alam mong dapat mo nang gawin. Not pursuing offenders when they have left. Calling for assistance internally and externally when safe to do. Dapat tumawag ka na ng assistance kung kailangan na, kung alam mo yun na yung makakabuti at yun na yung pinaka-safest na gagawin mo. Relying relevant information to others regarding to incident or attack. Dapat mag-rely ka ng mga relevant information regarding sa mga incident or attack na nangyayari. Securing the scene after the incident by not touching anything and ensuring no one else touches anything. Dapat siguraduhin mong secure pa rin yung scene na pangyarihan ng incident. Siguraduhin mong walang nagalaw doon na kahit anong bagay. Dahil, if ever man na may isang nakatouch doon, magkakaroon din ng conflict at yung information para makuha at malaman kung sino man yung attackers na nandun, mahirapan na silang hanapin because of the fingerprint hindi nila malalaman agad kung sino yun, if ever man na may nakatouch. Kaya dapat i-secure mo na walang nakapunta doon, at i-secure mo yung scene na doon, na yun, kung saan man na nangyarihan yung incident. Requesting members of the public to remain and talk to authorities. Dapat mag-request ka of member of public para makagain ng information, para makausap mo sila kung sino man yung nandun, para magbigay ng statement sa authorities. Pero, guests are not obligated to do this. Hindi nila obligasyon na gawin yun. Kung ayaw man nila, hindi mo sila dapat pilitin dahil nga hindi nila obligasyon na gawin yun. Asking those present to make witness statement. Once again, they are not compelled to do this. Pwede kang sa kanila kung gusto nilang magsabi ng statement as a witness. Pero kung ayaw nila, hindi mo dapat pilitin kasi nga they are not obligated na gawin yun. Not allowing person to enter the area after the incident. Of course, hindi nga pwedeng pumunta yung ibang tao doon at pumasok doon kasi nga kailangan mong ensure na lahat ng bagay na nandun or walang naka-touch. Kasi nga, habang nag-investigate ka, magkakaroon nyo ng conflict. Not talking to the media about the incidents or giving them access to the scene. Hindi pwedeng ikwento mo sa kanila kung ano yung nangyari mismo. Kasi if ever na nakatakas yung attackers or suspect, magkakaroon siya ng idea kapag napanood niya yung balitang yun. Participating in internal investigation and these briefings. Kailangan mo ding mag-participate sa internal investigation na yon para magkaroon na yung authorities ng information tungkol sa incident na yon. Next, complete necessary documentation. The provision of escort duties will normally require completion of relevant documentation. This section lists documents which may need to be completed. Standard information about completing documentation. Requirements relating to completing necessary document will vary between venues. In relation to completing relevant documentation, the following generally applies. Complete it as soon as possible after the work has been finalized or as soon as possible after an incident or event has occurred. Fill in all parts of elements of the form to be completed. When completing documents, may be honest. Kailangan dapat honest ka sa pag-fill up ng documents na yon kasi mahahalagang bagay yon. Doon sila kukuha ng informasyon para doon. Never and verb occurrence is word. Spoken, action, taken, observation made. Yun nga. Dapat maging honest ka. Accurate. There is a need to capture to the best extent possible what actually occurred. Pay special attention to the things such as dates, times, number, statistics, amount, values, registration number of vehicles, physical appearance, and what people say and words. Dapat magkaroon ka ng special attention for that kasi mahalaga yan. Mahalaga yan para sa mga information na idadagdag. Kasi hindi naman pwede na magbibigay ka na lang ng date, ng time, ng mga information na hindi naman totoo. Kailangan totoo yon at alam mong yun talaga. Comprehensive. It is best to provide too much information than to risk committing the one-factor piece of information which solve the case. Sure to distinguish known fact from opinion, belief, or perception. If you think it is absolutely necessary to include something which is the result of your intuition, make sure is flagged as such. Completed documentation need to be forwarded. There is always a need to file a form or hand it into the designated person or department. Dapat yung document na yon, yung kumpletong document na yon, kailangan mong i-forward sa mga designated person or department. In-house or on-job training will teach you the document to be completed, how they need to be completed. Tuturuan ka nila kung paano kumplituhin yung mga documents na yon at ipapaintindi nila kung bakit kailangan yung document na yon ay kumpleto. Keep a copy of any records or report you complete for your own records and propose after the event. Of course, kailangan may copy ka doon sa record na yon kasi importante yon. And lastly, seek advice when uncertain about whether a record or report or documentation is required and details and information required. Sample documents. The documents to be completed will vary depending on whether the assignment was successful and without incident or if an incident occurred. Documents we may need to be completed include assignment job sheet completed at the end of the allocated assignment to confirm the assignment was completed. Yun nga, para malaman or ma-confirm nila if na-complete mo yung assignment mo as an escort. Verify staff who complete the work para din ma-verify nila kung sino yung staff na na-complete yung work na yon. Show the time taken, resources used, the date of the task. Dun din nila malalaman kung ano yung time and resources na na-use mo sa task mo na yun. Also, dun din nila malalaman yung date. Indicate any problems or issues with the work performed. Dun din nila malalaman kung ano yung problems and issues mo habang pine-perform mo yung work na yun. Of lading or similar documents which are necessary to prove the valuables by description and number being escorted were handed over to as appropriate, another person or company, another venue, and a transport provider. Relieve the venue of obligation from the time the bill of lading was signed by the other party. Insure claims which need to be completed whenever a claim is made against an insurance policy held by the venue. You will normally be required to provide supporting information for your supervisor to complete this form, and they will ask you for details regarding the incident giving to rise to wherever caused the need for a claim to be luggage. Facts, dates, time, and specific information about the event or incident, details of the item or items stolen or damaged and or injured sustained, preventative action taken and avoid the incident, response taken after the event. Of course, sa mga documents na yan, dyan sila kukuha ng information about sa work mo na yun kung ano man yung mga nangyari. Doon nila malalaman at kakalap ng mga informasyon. Internal security request forms. These are completed when a new or modified risk or threat is identified as part of the activities involved in discharging other escort duties. To request changes to established plans, more or different resources, modification or addition to existing SOPs and policies. Security lodgement forms. These are forms which may have been completed by guests or clients who lodge items for safekeeping with the venue and by venue lodge guest or client or venue valuables with a third-party provider such as a bank or an external security company for safekeeping. Ito yung mga guests na kailangan nilang isigurado o isecure yung safety ng kanilang items. Items issued or items released form. These forms record the transfer of items from the venue to the rightful owners, detailing time and date of the transaction. Of course, kailangan alam nila kung ano yung time at date ng transaction nila. Description of the item or items. Kailangan din alam nila kung ano yung items para dapat merong description para alam nila kung ano yung items na iniwan nila. Proof of ownership used to confirm legitimate ownership. Kailangan din may proof of ownership nila para masigurado na sa kanila talaga yung item na yon kapag i-release na. Kasi baka kunyari, nagpapanggap lang sila na sa kanila yon, wala na, hindi mo na makukuha. Signature and name of person whom the item was released. Kailangan din ng signature para malaman kung na-release na talaga and also para malaman kung sa kanila talaga yon. Signature and name of staff who release. Also, kailangan din ng signature ng staff na nag-release nun para malaman kung sino yung nag-release ng items na yon. Security threat reports incorporating suspicious person report completed at the end of the shift to communicate situation which are believed to give rise to a new or modified threats, communicate updates, evidence related to established or identified threats, give details or suspicious person and suspicious activity. Kailangan alam mo kung ano yung mga suspicious na nangyayari. Kailangan may report ka sa mga situation na nangyayari or alam mong i-modified yung mga threats, dapat nakikipag-communicate ka for updates para sa evident din yun. Makakadagdag for the evident and also for the information para ma-identify mo yung mga threats or yung mga suspicious person na involved. Incident report to record details relating to an incident which has occurred in the venue. Kailangan mo din mag-record sa mga incident. Kasi nga, sabi ko kanina, dagdag evident and also information din yon. Witness statement taken when members of the public are prepared to make a statement regarding when they are observed when an event, incident, or offense took place. Sa documents na doon mo din ilalagay yung mga witness statement and other details na related sa incident na yon dahil importante yon para sa pagkakalap mo ng informasyon and also dagdag din sa observation yon tungkol sa event and incident na nangyari sa isang lugar. Recommendation for action. This is the form allowing staff to formally convey suggestions and ideas for issues such as change of SOPs, introduction of new SOPs, replacement of items, disposal of faulty or damaged equipment, purchase of new and different items and equipment. Bank documentation. This covers documents generated by both the venue and the bank in relation to transaction between them in respect of issues such as deposit for safekeeping, payments and deposit of cash, change, foreign currencies, and travel checks. Also, need din yung mga back documentation na yan. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay, next is house rules. Take note that it is always good to know what you are being asked to carry when taking delivery of a valuable item for transport or movement. In the vast majority of cases, guests will volunteer what the item is, but they are not obliged to tell you what the item is. Meron tayong mga guests na magpapahawak lang pero hindi sila nagsasabi kung ano yung laman o ano yung pinapahawak nila. Kasi nag-iingat lang din sila na baka pag ikaw yung nag-carry, baka ma-attempt mo din na gawin yung mga bagay na yon. Next. Obtain assistance if required. So dito, being part of a security team at the venue, you are always encouraged to obtain assistance with any assignment to ensure it is completed effectively. So when assistance may be obtained, kailan? You should feel free to call on help on the others at any time. In relation to carry valuable items, This refers to 3 distinct stages. May 3 stages to. Number 1, during the planning and preparation phase where applicable. Number 2, while providing actual carry service to enhance the service provision, assist the responses to threats or attacks. And number 3, as part of review stage following completion or finalization of the assignment. Next, reasons to obtain assistance. So, assistance in relation to provision of carrying duties is beneficial for several reasons. Ito ang mga rason. Ito na rin yung mga explanation niya. It helps to relieve you of sole responsibility. Next, it provides a more diverse range of options and opinions and options for action. Next, ang third, it supplies a bigger pool of expertise and experience to draw from. And next, it facilitates information sharing. And lastly, it generates more and more informed intelligence to use as the basis for planning and decision making. So yun yung mga reasons to obtain assistance natin. Next slide is the 3 main sources of assistance. Ang 3 main sources natin yung mga nakabold dyan. And yung mga under niya, yan na rin yung mga explanation natin. So, number 1, help from the other internal staff. This can be include, ito yung mga internal staff natin ha. Other security staff management. Second, people and staff who have been part of similar duties in the past. Assistance may cover suggestion for planning and action, information about previous assignments, help with providing suitable staff, and advice regarding expected trade and traffic levels, cooperation in closing certain areas. Second natin, sa 3 main sources of assistance is support from external security company, which may involve provision of guards to support movement of valuable items, provision of intelligence on local threats, and second to the last is contribution of suggestion for action and feedback on plans. Last is arrangement for response to attack and incidents. Ang pang-third main source natin ay support from local authorities. Ang suporta galing sa mga local authorities. This will commonly include the liaison with police, and their contribution or assistance may relate to provision of updated threat advice, tips of planning and strategies. Next is feedback on plans. Last is provision of physical presence on the day to assist with, for example, traffic management, yung crowd control natin, kung paano natin i-handle yung mga pagtitipon, kung paano natin i-control, dealing with the criminal activities. Yan yung mga commonly ginagawa ng ating mga local authorities. And next is organization of responses to identify issues and incidents. Next slide is perform carriage duties. Ito yung mga key aspect in performing carriage duties. Main aspect ha, key aspect rather. The following are all standard requirements for carriage duties within a venue. If a plan has been deployed, ang kailangan mo ay share the plan with the staff involved in the assignment. Dapat sa staff ka lang nagsasabi, sa mga kasamahan mo lang, at hindi ka magsasabi sa iba, because this is a private duties. Para tayong mga agent dito na dapat privado lahat. Next is obtain the necessary resources. The last is be prepared to rehearse the plan if were necessary, prepare the venue. Close and lock the door. Katulad nga sinabi ko kanina sa mga previous slide. Close and lock the door. And erect barriers. Follow and implement the plan. Kailangan mong planuhin, kailangan mong i-implement yung plano, at hindi ka dapat sumobra o hindi ka dapat kumulang doon sa mga plano nyo. Kasi isang maling kibot mo lang, mawawala na yung, pwede kayong mapahamak. Next is respond to requests for movement of valuable items promptly. Dito, meron tayong 4. Ensure required documentation is completed. Next is venues will have strict protocols for you to observe before you take possession of goods and carry them. Adopt a covert orientation. Sorry. To do the do not draw attention to yourself or what you are carrying. Next is retain situational awareness. Dapat lagi kang aware sa mga situation and aware ka sa mga paligid mo, sa mga tao. Constantly scan for threats as opposed to looking without a focus. Parang parang tumitingin ka lang, parang napapahawi lang yung tingin mo sa mga tao, pero nag-observe ka na pala kung ano yung mga mangyayari, ganun, kung may kakaiba ba, ganun. Next is take the shortest and quickest route between collection and delivery of the item. Ito sinabi ko na dun sa may second slide ko na kailangan short yung ruta mo, kailangan direct yung ruta mo. And yung short na ruta, yun ang pinakaligtas na daanan nyo. Subject to planning requirements which is required to different approach. Next is move quickly but not rushing and causing a sort of alarm among guest members of the public. Do not dawdle. Correct me if I'm wrong. Dito, kailangan sakto lang yung lakad mo. Sakto lang yung lakad mo, parang chill-chill lang, ganun. Pero hindi naman kailangan ng mabagal, hindi kailangan ng mabilis. Parang normal lang, tapos i-carry mo lang yung hindi ka nagmamadali, hindi ka gumagawa ng action na i-attempt yung mga pang-hold up, ganun. Next is be prepared to ask immediately for additional support if you believe the actual job you are being asked to undertake. It is significantly different to assignment you were given. Next is possess a significant threat. Next is there is an evident demand to extra human and or physical resources. Ang next natin is never put yourself in danger if a threat arises. Remember the basics. Ito, tandaan nyo, never put yourself in danger. Comply with demands made by attacks, safety of people, pati na yung sarili mo. Must always the priority over the security of items. Kailangan, bukod sa items na inaalagaan mo, kailangan mo rin alagaan yung sarili mo at alagaan mo yung mga taong nandun sa paligid mo kung may attackers na pupunta. Next is focus on the carry jobs as the prime objective. Syempre, nandito tayo sa carrying jobs natin. Kailangan yun yung pinaka prime objective natin. Do not get sidetracked. Huwag kayong gagawa na matatrack yung mga ginagawa nyo. Ito, do not get sidetracked. Magagawa mo naman yan kung nagawa mo yung mga sinabi ko nung previous slides, kung paano mag-obtain ng assistance natin. Next is, do not initiate or continue conversation with other. Dapat hindi ka talaga nakikipag-usap sa mga iba unless sa mga staff and dun sa guest and dun sa may hawak ng nagkikarry. Tell other staff of the venue you are busy and cannot stop. Terminate contacts with others. For example, ito may example na, people who ask questions for direction and local and venue information, promptly to politely, or arrange for someone else to assist. Do not stop and get a drink or a snack. Dapat tuloy-tuloy ka sa mga ginagawa mo. Kaya dapat bago mo gawin yung carrying jobs, kumain ka na, umihi ka na, nagbanyo ka na, at lahat. Avoid using restroom. Ito na. Avoid using restroom. Next is stay in communication. Yung mga radio, yung mga walkie-talkie natin, di ba meron yung mga guard meron dito. Para kung sakaling may napansin sila sa opening pa lang, masabihan na yung ibang guards. Next is when you radio, internal phone system, and cell phone with nominated person or control room, let them know that when you have arrived for collection of the item, when you are about to depart, the route you intend taking if a plan has not been developed, yung destination mo, your expected arrival time at the destination. It is a standard practice not to describe or identify the valuable item being carried on the radio. Hindi mo naman kailangan sabihin kung ano yung kinikerry mo dun sa radio. Sabihin mo lang kung ano yung ruta mo, kung ano yung standard mong practice, and yung time arrival mo. Next is aim to stay deep within the venue on the greatest extent possible. This means that using back of house corridors rather than public areas or spaces. Imbis na yung iba, imbis na sa main door ka pupunta sila sa mga back house, sa may fire exit, doon nila nilalagay kasi doon yung halos walang taong dumadaan. Next is using staff room service elevators as opposed in the public elevators. Meron kasi sa mga iba, ewan ko kung alam nyo to, may iba talagang elevator na for staff only. Next is avoiding routes which will take you close to ingress and egress points. Walang yan. Next is respond to threats. Ito yung kung paano ka magre-respond dun sa mga possible threats. Responding to threats. Where a threat is suspected, the appropriate action is to greatest possible given the situation and circumstances which apply, avoid the threat. Avoid natin yon. This is primary requirement in relation to responding to threats. You are expected to, ito ang ina-expect natin, work around the threat rather than confront it. Imbis na pumalag ka, ano na lang, parang wag mo na lang intindihin na para hindi lumaki yung away. Kung parang conversation lang yan eh. Kung sumabat yung isa, sasabat ka din, mag-aaway kayo. Yun sa atin, kung may kinikerry ka at may na-confront sa'yo, wag mo na lang sigurong pansinin and dire-diretso ka na lang doon sa mga sa ruta mo. But ang kailangan mo is observation. Kung susunod ba siya, kung may dala siyang kutsilyo, aatakin ka sa likod, gano'n. Continue with the job assignment when the threat has been identified. Parang dito, di ba sabi kanina maglakad ka lang ng gusto. Pero pag may threat na, parang bilisan mo ng konti yung lakad mo para mas short yung time na nasa labas ka. Next is respond according to the predetermined emergency evacuation of the SOP which applies. Next, ang pag-respond to threats is alter your route. If you are working primary route, which to a secondary one, if you have no plan route, shift from the other one, para mag-shift ka ng ibang ruta. Kung sa tingin mo yung rutang safe, ay may nakaabang na, mag-shift ka ng ruta, iligaw mo yung attacker. Next is notify others in the venue. This can be a telephone call. Ito na yung nasabi ko doon sa previous slide ko kanina, a telephone call, a radio transmission, shouted instruction or warning the staff or members of the public, activation of some form of alarm. Standard practices is to notify internally. When this notification has been received internally, this should trigger automatic calls to police and external circuit. Pag nagawa mo yung, kunwari, may sign language kayo na ganyan. Pag may ganyan na, may parang mali na, may attackers na mga ganon. Mga sign language nyo na, di ba, yung iba yung dito, may earphone dito, tapos may radio dito. Gaganyan lang sila, meron na silang alam na threat na paparating. Next slide is call for backup. In addition, notify others of your suspicions or about to impending threat. You should ask for help. Yan yung pinakauna natin. Never assume that it will be provided. Mag-ask ka ng help kasi hindi naman sa lahat ng bagay may nakalaan na magpo-provide ng help sa'yo. Next is standard procedure is to send assistance, but it should be standard to request it. Meron namang iba na safe ka talaga, pero kailangan mo pa rin mag-request talaga ng mga assistance. Give details of location and assignment, provide weather information about the perceived threat you can. Pero dito, pag sinabing give details to location, sa mga staff lang nun na kasama mo para mag-carry. Next is act quickly. Huwag kang parang yung may attackers na parang ikaw pa yung unang unang maninervyos, ganon. Mag-act ka kaagad na yung dala mo and yung guest mo, maprotektahan mo. It is vital to take fast action. You significantly increase the potential for problems and the possible impact of the problem if you overthink the situation. Yung naglalakad ka pa lang, kahit safe ka naman, parang ang sinasabi mo, paano pag may ganito, paano pag may umatak, anong gagawin ko, yung ganon. Dapat ready ka sa lahat ng sitwasyon. And worry about the ramification if you overreacted and made a wrong call. Minsan kasi may mga suspicious na tao na ano pala yun, staff din pala na hindi mo lang alam na staff yun. Next is delay a call for backup. Wait to see what happens. Magwi-wait ka kung anong mangyayari. Pero kailangan mo pa rin umap ng maayos. Do two things at once. Ito, see below sabi niya dito. Step up your observation by making a conscious effort to remember the situation and recall descriptions of those identified as possible offenders. Next is using camera to record situation, taking notes, communicating observation to the control room, center, or the staff. Diba yung mga nagre-raid, meron dapat camera dito? Para alam nila kung ano yung mangyayari and natatrack nila kung ano nangyayari at kung nasaan sila. Next slide is need to do. Sorry, wait lang. What you need to do. The need to do two things at once. Ito. When responding to threat, you have to develop through practice to. Katulad sinabi ni Rika, kailangan mong i-practice lahat. And doon sa slide ni Irene, meron din tayo doon na dapat nag-undergo ka sa mga practices and seminars, gano'n. The ability and capacity to do two things or more at the same time. When you identify a threat, you cannot simply apply the response option above the sequential order. There are always be a need of simultaneously, for example, move a different route. Ito sinabi ko kanina. Enhance your observation and suspected perpetrators. Sinabi ko na rin yan. Increase the level of situational awareness. Sinabi ko na rin. Plan a response if the threat material into the actual incident. Next is communicate with others of control room to notify the suspicious and the actions you are taking. Sinabi ko na rin yan, dapat meron yung camera, walkie-talkie, and yung parang headset dito. Next is responding to an attack. Paano ka nga ba mag-respond sa isang atake? Allow offenders to take the items. Allow mo basta may tracking device yon. At pag kunwari, hawak mo na, tapos naibigay mo, basta may tracking device or bomb na parang dry bomb siya. Offer no resistance. Do not try to delay them. Wag mo nang patagalin, ibigay mo na kasi for sure, pag tumakbo na sila, may walkie-talkie ka naman tawag mo sa mga doors na pwede paglabasan ng attacker, di ba? May mga guard naman yon. Do not try to be hero. Wag kang pilingero, ganon. Next is protect the safety of the people. Protect mo ang seguridad ng mga tao. Kasi ang item pwede namang maibalik kasi nga may tracking device. Covertly note that appearance of the offenders, anything they say, how they leave the scene, and direction they take, pass on the police after the incident. Ayan. Kailangan alam mo kung saan sila pumunta, sang ruta, at kung paano sila umalis. At yun yung sasabihin mo sa mga local authorities natin, which is yung mga police. Next slide is complete necessary documentation. Ito yung standard information about completing documentation. In relation to completing relevant documentation, the following generally applies. Complete it as soon as possible. Gawin mo kaagad after the work has been finalized or soon as possible after the incident or event has occurred. Possible attack, dapat alam mo na yung mangyayari, na aware ka na may mga threats. Fill an all parts elements of the form be completed. Next is when completing document, be honest. Yan yung first natin, sinabi ng slide ni Irene, which is yung mga nag-recite din kami. Next is never invent occurrences. Words is spoken. Dapat hindi ka madudula sa mga sinasabi mo. Action taken or observation made be accurate. There is a need to capture to the best extent possible what actually occurred. Pay special attention to the things such as dates, times, numbers, statistics, amounts, values, and registration. Dapat yung kinikerry mo rehistrado, alam mo yung value, at yung halaga nung kinikerry mo, yung statistics, yung numbers ng ikikerry mo, and yung oras ng arrival and magdi-depart ka. Next is yung dates natin. Next is be sure to distinguish known fact from opinion, belief, or perception. If you think it is absolutely necessary to include something which is the result of the intuition, make sure the flag such as complete documentation needs to be forwarded. This is always a need to file a form or hand it in to a design person or department. In-house or on-the-job training will teach you. Sinabi na rin yan nila Irene and Rika. The documents to be completed, how they need to be completed. Dapat alam mo yung document, alam mo kung paano ito mako-complete, alam mo lahat dun sa documents. And next is keep a copy of any records, reports, or complete for your own records and purposes after the event. Dapat meron ka laging copy. May copy yung guest mo, may copy ka, may copy yung other staff. Para in case na mawala yun, kahit may tracking device, alam natin kung ano yon. Kasi minsan yung mga kinikerry natin, siya sa isang box. Hindi naman natin pwedeng buksan yung box, di ba? Dapat alam mo kung ano yon, that may mga copy ka ng documents nun. Next is, ito yung mga sample documents. Documents which may need to complete include assignment, job sheets, completed at the end of the allocated assignment 2, confirm the assignment was completed, verify staff who completed the work, and next is show the time taken, resources used, and the date or dates of the task, indicate any problems or issues with the work performed. Dapat lagi kang magre-report sa kinauukulan nyo. Lagi kang mag-report sa guest, sa may-ari ng document, ganon. Bills of landings or similar documents. Ayan. Ito yung sample documents natin. Bills of lading? Leading. Sorry. Which are necessary to prove the valuables by description and numbers. Being carried where handed over to as appropriate another person or company, other venue, a transport provider relieve the venue of obligation of the time the bill was time the bill of lading or lading was assigned by the other party. Next is insurance claim, which need to be completed whenever a claim is made against the insurance policy held by the venue. First is you will normally be required to provide supporting information for your supervisor. Next is, ito yung mga details niya. The incidents giving rise to whatever cause the need of the claim or lagged facts, dates, times, and specific information. Dapat kailangan din natin maging preventive sa mga action to avoid incidents. Next slide is yan. Internal security request form. These are completed when the modified risk or threat is identified as part of activities involved in discharging other escort duties. The request changes the established plans, more or different resources, modification of or addition to existing SOP and policies. Next is security lodgement forms. These are the forms which may have been completed by the guest. And when the items are collected from the carriage of safekeeping by guest clients who lodge items for safekeeping with the venue. Next is security threats reporting incorporating suspicious person report completed at the end of the shift to communicate situation with with which are believed to give rise and give rise to a new or modified threats. Communicate updated evidence related to established or identified threats. Give the details of suspicious person and suspicious activity. Dapat lagi mong, hindi lang yung ruta yung dapat mong observe. Observe mo rin yung suspicious person para alam mo kung ano yung iaak niyang activity. Next is receipt form. Guests verifying they have their valuable items returned to them. Staff verifying they have received. For example, yung flash float carried to them, the amount of money to be taken in POS terminals. Next is the part of standard register clearing operation during the trade. A copy is also left in the register or terminal cash drawer. Yung sinabi ko kanina, yung iba't ibang uri ng mga pinaglalagyan natin ng pag-carry. Meron tayo yun, di ba, yung cash drawer. Next is incident report to record incident reports to record details relating to an incident which has occurred in the venue. Witness statements taken when the members of the public are prepared to make statements. Dapat yung mga witness do sa public na pinag-ano nung atake, dapat yung mga person doon na na-witness, dapat alam nila kung ano yung mga naobserbahan nila, ano yung naging insidente, para hindi ka nag-iisang nagsasabi nun. Kasi kung mag-isa ka lang, mahirap paniwalaan yon. Next is recommendation of core action. This form allowing staff to formally convey suggestions and ideas for issues such as change the SOPs, introduction of the new SOP. Siyempre, pag nag-change ka ng SOP, kailangan mo introduce yung bagong SOP. Yung replacement din ng items mo, yung disposal of faulty damaged equipment. Next is yung purchase of new and different items and the equipment. Yun yung mga recommendation for action natin. So, tapos na ako. Ang next presenter natin ay si Mitch Padama for Element 4.
Good day, everyone. I'm Mitch Padama. I'm going to present the Element 4 store valuable items. First, identify the storage option required. When guests elect to store valuable items, they may need to be made aware of the option valuable to them. This section identify the commonly provided safe storage option para sa mga guests who wish to store valuable items. When guests wants to secure store valuable items in hotel, lagi silang nagbibigay ng mga 2 options para dito. Sa store options, there are 7 types of storage options. First one is in-room safes. This located in the guest rooms and used by them to store small valuable items. The instructions for the safe are provided with the safe. In many cases, a guest will be prepared to use this option when they are made aware of it, storing whatever will fit into the safe. Yung mga guests can create their own codes para sa safe and ilagay ang kahit na ano na pwedeng magkasya or mag-fit sa safe. And always wise to make people aware of these options para sa item or gamit nila na gusto nilang maging safe sa hotel room nila. Second one is the TDR safes or torch and drill resistance. These are safes rated by manufacturers as being TDR. These are difficult for thieves to break into, requiring them to use special equipment to gain entry and requiring them to spend time to do so. Dito naman is hindi ito basta-basta na safe para sa mga magnanakaw. Para masira ang bagay na ito, kailangan mo nang gumamit ng mga matitibay na bagay para mabuksan ito at matatagalan sila na mabuksan ang safe na to. Kaya mas safe, the best nilang in-offer is the TDR safes. Third one is in-floor safes. These are safes which are built into a concrete floor in an office. These are also referred to as in-ground safes. The fact that they are set into concrete, ibig sabihin hindi ito maalis from the venue o kung saan man ito nilagay. Yung ibang safe pwedeng matanggal pero ito ay maaaring masira pag sinubukan mong tanggalin. Time delay safes. Time delay locks use technology to delay the opening of combination lock for a given time. Duress option, meaning security staffs can override the time delay and enter a predetermined access code to open the lock. Gaya nung sasabi ni Irene, dun sa report niya, mga 10 to 15 minutes usually after mailagay ang tamang code para mabuksan to. Entering this code also means once na na-reach na time delay sa safe, kasi may 3 trial, mga ganun lang nakalagay para ma-alert yung mga emergency staff na may nagsusubok na buksan yung safe na yon. Then, time lock safes. These are safes fitted with technology which prevents them from being opened between nominated hours. An override facility may be incorporated into the safe. Time lock naman, pwede ding TDR or in-ground in-floor safes din to. Next is vaults. These are walk-in safes that high-tech protection. Vaults are often available in 5-star hotel. Casinos will be more likely to have vault facilities, and access to the vault is always restricted only to staff. Sa ibang venues, di sila nag-offer ng vault facilities. Staff lang ang makakalam kung sino ang guest o ang may-ari ng vault at kung ano man ang laman ng vault. If ang guest ay nag-insist na sa vault storage, kailangan ng arrangement with your bank kung sino ang mag-prepared para mag-ayos ng request para maayos ang vault na nais ng guest. Next is off-site storage. Consideration of secure off-site storage must also embrace consideration of safe and secure transport strategies. This covers any safe storage at another site or sa mga businesses naman. Next, place items into storage. Every value will have a suite of protocols which must be complied with when accepting an item for safekeeping and placing the item into storage. Sa part na to naman, dinidescribe ang range of commonly used ng protocols which is important in every service. First is the storage protocols. Protocols may vary between venues, so make sure you identify what required in your workplace. Protocol ay isang napakahalagang bagay. Siyempre sa lahat ng mapa hotel venue, sa mga security staff, ganon, may mga protocols. Para masigurado nila at maging aware ang mga guests at staff kung ano ang mga dapat at hindi dapat gawin. The following are representative requirements. First, the item, andito na yung mga meaning nila. The item may be cited to determine its legitimacy, legality, and safety. Ibig sabihin, required na matingnan ang anumang dala ng guest bago tanggapin at ilagay sa mga storages. Second, the item to be stored will need to be described by completing an appropriate document. Kailangan i-describe ng may dala ng item na yon or anything to make sure that it is legal or illegal item. Kasi kung illegal, syempre hindi naman tatanggapin yon. kung ano ba ito at saan galing o kung ano ang value nito at iba pa. Third, providing guests with receipt for goods deposit for safekeeping. Ini-encode nila ang mga document na kailangan, then binibigay ito sa guest. They need to explain the purpose, role, function, and importance of any document provided to them. Syempre yung mga guests must give the information needed para alam nila kung bakit kailangan itong protektahan. Physically taking the item from the guest. To inform the guest ang limitation of liability. Thanking the guest and offering some positive comment regarding the occurring of the item they have just lodged for safekeeping. Nilalagay nila ang item kung saan dapat ito ilagay. Tapos, syempre, kailangan nating pasalamatan ang guest sa pagtiwala sa atin. Ganon. Informing guests of their options. When there is need to inform guests or clients about their storage options at a venue, you must focus. Syempre, you need to focus sa pakikipag-communicate, relationship with them, para malaman mo, ganon. Allow the guests to inspect the facilities where this is approved or authorized by the management. Syempre, dapat alam ng guests kung safe ba yung pagkakatiwalaan nila sa mga bagay na pinoprotektahan nila, ganon. Take the time. Ipaliwanag ang dapat mong ipaliwanag kung anong mga benefits and avail for the decision of the guest. Pang-apat, provide any relevant data. Bigay ng references sa venue website, ibigay sa kanila, pakikipag-ugnayan sa head security para ma-inform sila. Then, sell the service. Declining an offer of items for storage. When you are unable to accept an item into storage for safekeeping, you should tell syempre mag-apologize ka, explain mo kung bakit hindi pwede yung item na yun sa storage nyo, ganon. Or mag-suggest na sa tingin mo ay nararapat para kung saan allow na ilagay yung item or document na gusto nilang ipatago. Complete necessary documentation. Storage of guest valuables into safekeeping will always require the completion of standard documents. Dapat ang mga documents ay kompleto na dahil part ito ng process at syempre para maging legal ito. Then, completing the paperwork. Paperwork needs to be completed will vary between venue and event. Vary between items offered for storage. The following is indicate of what can be required. Nakalagay na dito lahat. First, no items can be accepted into secure storage unless the required documentation is completed kung saan man gusto ng guest ilagay ang store items. The item to be stored need to be described by completing an appropriate document. Gaya ng storage register, form, slip, or receipt. Kasi posible din na dalawa ang kailangan na document para sa safe. Description of the item will require due to detail. Kung ano man ang uri ng item, syempre kailangan sabihin ng guest. Item, the model, kung sino ang gumawa, value and quantity or pre-existing damage niya. Name of or a room number and signatures from the guest. Siyempre sa mga register kailangan yun sa pag-package or sa pagsisil ng item nila, ganun. Advice when completing documents. When completing documents, complete them at the time. Siyempre dapat yung document na kailangan na matapos kasi habang nandun pa yung guest. Kasi posibleng di natanggapin or makompleto pa ang document na yon kapag wala yung guest. Syempre, siya ang nakakaalam kung ano yung mga dapat dun sa item na yon, kung ano yung mga descriptions niya, ganun. Fill in all parts or elements of the forms to be completed. You must be honest, accurate, and comprehensive. Complete documentation may be forwarded to a file designation person or department. In-house or on the job training will teach you the document to be complete or kung paano ito kukompletohin. Doon, syempre, kailangan ng mga training kung anong mga kailangan, ganun. Keep a copy of any document provided to guests or clients. Yung guests, mostly na nakaka-receive ng original at ang duplicate copy naman ay sa mga mismong may-ari ng company. Ganun. Seek out an advice, record or report or documentation every detail and info as is required. So that's all our report.
Thank you, Mitch. So,
Thank you,
again, we are the group 4. Irene Batalya, Rica May Fernandez, Jamaica Eve Mackay, and Mitch Padama. Thank you po.